Hey guys, this is Locke. In this video, I'm going to talk about which epic hero you could select from the Dream Draft. I'm going to give you my suggestion first, and then I'm going to talk about some other heroes, especially if you already have the hero that I'm going to talk about, some other heroes, and also it will really depend on the team that you're using. You also want to, take advantage of the 5-element boost that you can get, so it would really depend on a case-by-case scenario, but overall, I seriously suggest Voresh, and I will talk about it in a second. But first of all, just to give you a very brief guide, from the 8 types of heroes, the most powerful ones, the ones that you can use most often in many scenarios, are usually the defense and support heroes. The other heroes, these 6 usually just do damage really well, and some of them don't even do damage very well. But they are a type. So in most cases, these 6 type of heroes don't provide anything else but damage, and they might also boost their own type. For example, a Dauntless hero might also boost other Dauntless heroes, but it's really hard to bring a good team of them. Whereas the defense and support heroes, they are very versatile. They can be used all over the place. So in my opinion, the first thing that you want to do when you want to narrow down which epic you want to get, just check off defense and support, because I think those are the most versatile heroes that you can use in a number of scenarios. So the reason that I very seriously and highly recommend Voresh is because he can do a multitude of things, and he actually enables tactics that when you build other things, you can use him in. So first of all, I'll just talk about him in a vacuum, and then I'll talk about other things that you can do with him. So because you're only limited to 5 heroes, and in a lot of times when you're doing boss fights, you're also limited to, you want to kill the boss in a certain number of time, either 5 minutes or 6 minutes. You want to maximize the number of slots that you can bring. If you are bringing a dedicated healer, that means that you are no longer bringing somebody, you're giving up a slot for doing damage. You're bringing somebody that's dedicated, doing healing, and not something else. Voresh is able to do significant amount of damage, and he also heals based on his attack. So you can actually build him just as an attacking DPS character, and he will do significant amount of healing on top of that. So how much healing does he actually do? His heals depends on whenever an enemy gets hit. Now, with both his ultimate and his battle skill, he attacks the enemy 3 times. That means he will also heal people 3 times. The wording on this skill says that it will only trigger once when dealing damage to multiple targets. That means if you're using, your ultimate to attack 5 people, it doesn't mean you get 5 heals. You only get 1 heal. But the ultimate attacks everyone 3 times, so you will actually end up getting 3 heals, not 15. That's what this wording means, just to be clear on that. Now, additionally, he also is able to provide some other supporting characteristics as well. He is able to inflict buff prohibition, which is good for 2 dungeons, because the first, the Grave of Curses, the boss buffs himself, so you want to, prohibit that. And then there's also the negative rune boss, which also buffs himself, that you want to prevent that as well. But in case this misses, or you don't cast this in time for when the boss buffs. For example, the boss already buffs at the 5th second or something, and then you cast this in the 12th second. That's a bit too late, right? But don't worry, Voresh already got you, because on his battle skill, he also is able to dispel buffs from the enemies as well. So he's very potent in that, and he's able to remove 3 buffs with this skill. And he has a 60% chance of removing it, so it's not guaranteed, but it is pretty good, especially if you build him for accuracy. He is, for your buff removal purposes, he's really good. So how you would work with him is you only have to make sure that he removes with his battle skill the very first time. After that, you could set this, and this is a 100% chance to land. So you can set this to work whenever the boss is about to buff the next time. So with that, I mean, he is covered with any of your bosses that you have to remove their buffs. He is. You only need to bring him. You don't need to bring another character for that. No, I mentioned that there are other characters, there are other things that you can do with him and why he's so powerful. So he is one of the few units, there isn't too many of them, but there are a few, that can attack the entire field. It doesn't matter where they are. Now, that by itself isn't that good, but there are a number of things that you can do with this that makes it, in my opinion, very, very good. So I want to show you the dungeon, and I will tell you why I think it's so powerful. We are going to the Grave of Rot. Okay, so in the Grave of Rot, you are able to get this item, the Holy Hunter Chest. Now, initially, this looks like, oh, this is good for PvP, but that's not so, especially with the additional modes that we're getting. For example, Trials, and then also Feymander. You have a lot of enemies that you're fighting all the time, and these enemies can actually be controlled. So you can stun them, you can freeze them, and so on and so on. And I found that this is actually really useful with Warish, because he's attacking the entire field, so we'll always attack 5 enemies unless one of them dies. He will always attack them, and you get 3 chances to have a 20% chance of stunning. So it's not only 20% chance now, it's 20% multiplied by 3, which is not exactly 60, but a bit less, maybe like 40 to 50%. I don't have time to do the math right now, but it's a pretty good chance because it applies on every single time you attack. It doesn't count off of derivative damage, but Warish doesn't do derivative damage, but you get a high chance to stun everyone on the field, right? And he also increases his accuracy as well, which is really what, I mean, if you're stunning people, if you're controlling them, you want to have accuracy. So you get plus 40 accuracy, and it works with the other skills. You can also what's it called? You can also, put buff prohibition on them. You can also remove their buffs. Like, accuracy works very well with him. So you can build them for attack and accuracy, and build them with the set. And you can still get the attack chest. You can still get the attack gloves. So you don't have to build them as like a supportive non-attack character. You can still do like very high damage with a Warish with this accuracy kind of build. But additionally, you're also stunning them now. This is not good for boss fights, of course, because boss fights you can't stun them. But there is a lot of content in this game which is difficult, which isn't boss fights. Like high-level Feymanders are pretty tough, and also the Trials, which is right here. Where'd it go? Yeah, this one. So in this one, you're fighting waves on waves of enemies. Every time, every fight, you're fighting 15 enemies, and you can stun these. So, I think Warish is really good for that. And additionally, there's also one other thing you can do with him, which is also very, very good. So that is, see, not everyone will have access to this right away, but when you do have access to this, this is phenomenal. This Witch's Remain. So there is only 2 ways to decrease the defense of somebody, and both of those ways right now are through artifacts. Curse of the Crown, which is, sorry, Crown of the Unclean, which is the first one. It is an epic artifact, and then eventually it is a legendary artifact that you can get, Witch's Remain. And both of these are the only way right now in the game to decrease the defense of an enemy that you're fighting. And this also works on bosses. These 2 artifacts have differences. This one gives you defense penalty 1. I think it's either 25% or 30% defense decrease. But this one gives you defense penalty 2, which is a 50% decrease, which is, much stronger. Not everyone is going to be able to get this, of course, because you need to have a duplicate of a legendary. But there are people that have that. And as we play the game, eventually more and more people will eventually reach that point where you get a second legendary and you want to figure out which legendary artifact you want to get. This is a strong contender. I wouldn't say it's number 1, because there's another one I think is even more powerful for most cases, but this is, I think, a strong contender. Definitely the second artifact I would get if I had to go start all over again. So the negative thing with this artifact is that it only has a 60% chance of inflicting defense penalty, whereas this one has a 75% chance of inflicting defense penalty. And this only works on ultimate. So with most units, like pick any unit, Sigrid for example, if you put the Witch's Remains on Sigrid, she has a 60% chance of casting it on all units, because this one also is, it can apply to all units, whereas the first one, it only applies to 1. Okay, so if you put the Witch's Remain on Sigrid, she has a 60% chance to apply it to all the units. But Warish, and sorry, not all units, Sigrid, it depends if everyone else is already debuffed. If everyone is already debuffed, she has a 60% chance from her ultimate to apply it to everyone. But Warish is even better. He doesn't need a pre-existing condition. He attacks everybody anyway, and he attacks everyone 3 times. Now that's really powerful, because you have 3 times 60% chance to apply this debuff to everybody, right? So that's almost not exactly 100%, but it is very close, like probably like 80% or so chance to apply them, provided you have enough accuracy. And this artifact also does give you accuracy. So imagine you build Warish with this artifact and with this with this with this equipment. So you have a high chance to decrease the defense of everyone except bosses as well, including bosses, and then you also have a almost like a 40% chance to stun everyone as well, except bosses with this. And you're also building for accuracy because you have accuracy from here. You can still build him, with attack. That's what I did here. I did crit rate, attack, but he still has high accuracy. He has 284. But of course, 96 is coming from this. If you don't have this, maybe you will have this or something, and it'll be a little bit less. But still, this is pretty high. He's very accurate. He has pretty high attack. He has good crit rate, good crit damage. You can build him as an attacker, and he can also do so much things with the right build. So I wanted to lay that all out there because he is a very powerful character if you build him correctly, and you don't have to build him right now. Like you can, he even without the correct gear, even without the correct artifact that I talked about, he's still a very good character because he does a lot of attack, he does a lot of healing, he does buff removal, buff prohibition. So if I had to start all over again, I didn't have any of the epics in the game, he is the one that I would choose with this chest for $1. That if people can afford to pay $1 and you don't have Warish, I very highly recommend that you get Warish. But Warish is not the end all and be all of this discussion because there is a lot more to this game than just which is the best character in a vacuum, right? You have to kind of think about your team composition as well. Like maybe you're not really using ice and necrosis. Maybe you're building fire and poison, so Warish isn't going to be as helpful for you as one of those characters because that's just the team that you're going for. Thankfully, there is a ice character which is pretty good. Sorry, not ice, a frost character which is pretty good that you can kind of pair him with, that I think a lot of people have already built out. So Usha is ice, and although Warish doesn't inflict frost, you can use Warish and Usha and another person to get a 3-team bonus, or another 3 people to get the 5-team bonus. So that could work. But there are other choices, especially, I mean, if you already have Warish, like, why am I talking about him so much? There are other good choices as well. My second choice would actually be Zarloth. Zarloth also does a lot of stuff as well. Zarloth is capable of healing everyone on the map as well. Zarloth does 150%, sorry, not 120%, because this goes off 4 times, not 5 for some reason. So Zarloth heals everybody for 120% of attack, and it's everywhere on the map, all allies, but that is increased by the amount of enemies that you're hitting. He also is able to heal from his passive skill as well, and is a pretty significant heal, 300% of attack. It starts off at once every 10 seconds, but if you bring his attack speed down from 250 to 2, it's once every 8 seconds. So you can bring his attack speed down, do more damage while you're doing that, and you can build him, strictly for attack. And while you're maximizing your attack output, you're also maximizing the healing, because all of his healing is based on his attack. His battle skill also does a very good debuff as well, the recharging speed penalty down. This is especially useful for bosses where the boss's ultimate gauge recharges every 18 seconds, and most of your units, even if you level them up, they completely recharge in 20 seconds. So you want to bring that, you want to extend the boss's recharge timer. So by bringing Zarloth, you're able to do that a little bit, because he decreases the speed, the recharging speed, so you're able to elongate it a little bit, and so he helps with that. There isn't too many units that can do this, and he's one of the best at that job, so he would probably be my number 2 choice. My number 3 choice would probably be Garius. I've seen people talk about Garius on Reddit, how he's so annoying in Arena, how I've heard somebody say that I only leave my team as Garius and nobody else in Arena, and I win 70% of my fights. I'm not the one saying it. Somebody said it on Reddit. Maybe he's lying. I don't know. But I could totally see it. I think he has the highest single target healing that I've seen in this game so far, and he's just an epic. Because you can build for defense very well, and he scales off of this as well because his passive increases his defense by 40%. You know, you get hit 20 times, you get 20 stacks. Each stack is 2% defense, so he increases his defense by 40% just from his passive. He increases his defense from his aura, his captain skill. If you're fighting him and you apply decreased defense on him, he's able to remove all debuffs from himself, and so he will have access to his full defense and then heal based off of that defense. I've seen people heal with him for 40k for his entire team. That's a lot of healing. People compare him with Furbath. Where is he? And it's kind of neck and neck which one is stronger. I personally prefer Garius better, but Furbath is also really good as well. The thing that Furbath has over Garius is that he's able to inflict attack penalty 2, which is very powerful. I've talked in many videos about how this is the best debuff in the game. You can basically decrease the boss's attack by 50% with this, and it's an overall 50% decrease. I mean, I talk about it in the other videos. Please go check it out because I don't want to spend too much time on that, but this is very powerful. And I talk about it in a different video as well, where you can kind of combine 2 units with this attack penalty debuff on a 20-second recharge timer, and basically you can chain them together automatically that the boss will be debuffed with attack penalty 2 debuff for the entire duration of the fight. So you can combine him with Sigrid or any other such unit, but Sigrid works really well because they're both poison. So you can combine them and you can basically have the boss debuffed 100% of the time. And both of them are really good units. So especially if you are building for a poison team, poison fire team, maybe this is the way to go. Maybe it's better to go with Furbath over Garius. But there is one thing, but again, this is not going to be, not everyone is going to be able to do this, unfortunately, because it is access to a legendary artifact. But if you have it, this artifact is game changing. I mean it. I mean, I had my team in Vortex where I was doing 15 million damage on the boss, and then I got this artifact, and it was, when I got it, I was only able to level it up to, I think, level 12, and nothing else changed. The only thing that changed is I got this artifact, and my damage went from 15 million to 21 million on Vortex. I'm using the exact same characters. I didn't change any of their other equipment. But the reason this is so powerful is because it would change your healing, your overflow healing, into a shield, right? And with Garius, that could be a 40k shield. I mean, if you have your team at full health and you have Garius... and if you have this level up to 20, it converts 100% of the overflow healing into a shield. And the reason why that's so important and so powerful is because there could be bosses that do a lot of damage. For example, Vortex at at a high stage, say like the level 30th on the 4th stage, it one-shots all of my DPS characters. I can't, if I have to sacrifice attack and crit to build defense and HP, well, then I'm losing out on damage. So I don't want to do that. But with this, I can basically give them a 40k shield, which means that they increase their HP, right? Because that's what it does. A shield means you're adding to HP. You're not healing. Like your max HP is no longer limited to their actual HP. You're getting a 40k shield on top of that. So with that, I'm basically able to survive, many more attacks from the Vortex boss. And it's not only limited to the Vortex boss. There are other bosses as well that do a lot of damage. One that comes into mind is the Negative Rune boss, which is the one over here. This guy does a lot of damage. He does a lot of AoE damage, and he also attacks the person that's farthest from your team, and the one with the highest attack, he does a ton of damage. So having a shield, that elongates your HP is very powerful. But as I said, this is not something that everyone can do, unfortunately, because you have to have a copy of a legendary unit, which not everyone is going to have access to, unfortunately. But I wanted to, give the full picture of why so-and-so unit is important, because at some point when you are able to make that decision, you know, you want to be informed, right? So that's why I'm trying to give as much detail now as possible, even though not everyone will be able to get it right now. But yeah, this is definitely the most game-changing artifact, especially if you have Garius. Now, if you have Furbath, unfortunately, this artifact is not going to be as powerful to you, because this is based on a single target heal. With Furbath, what he does is, just go to him so we can read the skill together. Okay, so what Furbath does is he provides a healing nexus, and he heals the hero like, you know, for 6 seconds every second. So the highest amount of shielding you can get will not exceed, like, for example, say, you know, the first second Furbath gives you 1000 shield, sorry, 1000 healing, and then the second second he gives you another 1000, and then third second another 1000. So overall he heals you for, say, 6000 healing, which is good. But your shield it doesn't refresh each time, so you will only get a shield of 1000. You will not get a shield of 6000, only one. So that artifact is not good for units that heal multiple times. Like, for example, Alicia, that artifact is not good for her, although, you know, not a lot of people will have access to her, but just making the point. Because how she heals is she heals every 5 seconds for, you know, a certain amount. So you will only benefit from the first time. If you lose the shield on the first time, then you will benefit from it. But it's much better to have a very big shield up front than having a small shield that you just recharge over 5 seconds, you know? So if you are using that artifact, it is better to go with somebody that has a bigger shield. That has a bigger healing, like Garius. So I've talked about 3 units and kind of 4 with Furbath that I think are good, but there are other choices as well that I want to talk about. And one that I don't see a lot of people mentioning is Thea. Thea, I think, especially when you are, you know, not fully established in the game, when you are not able to do the latest stages of dungeons, I think she is a multi-purpose unit that is very good. First of all, she gives you debuff immunity. There is very few sources of that. So debuff immunity is very good. Even now, when I'm fully established and able to do the level 9 of a lot of dungeons, I use her for the Phoenix dungeon, and I use her for the Grave of Rot, because both of those bosses do AoE debuffs that I want to prevent. So I use her for that already. But she does a bunch of other stuff too. I mean, she does healing prohibition, but, you know, that's not her selling point. Her selling point is actually, again, she's able to heal. First of all, she heals the person with the lowest HP, which might possibly be your tank. And then she also heals all allies with invisibility. But she gives invisibility to all ranged allies with her ultimate. So she is basically able to heal the lowest HP unit and any ranged unit on her battle skill. And this is a pretty significant heal. It's 200% of attack. You can cast this once every 12 seconds. And it also increases based on enlightenment, so you can build her for attack and enlightenment and do massive heals with the skill. But her passive is also very good as well, because for allies that are under invisibility, which is basically all ranged allies, they will be taking 15% less damage. So especially when I'm not able to do the 9th level of bosses for the first time, because the boss does AoE and, you know, kills my backline too fast, I can bring her. She does, you know, as I said, other stuff as well. She also brings debuff immunity and stuff, but she's also able to increase the survival rate of all my units. I feel like she's not talked about a lot, but I think she's actually really powerful. She does a bunch of things, and she also has one of the best captain skills in the game. In my opinion, accuracy is the best captain skill, because the attack debuff penalty that you need to do on these bosses are, you know, it's huge. But the bosses have very high resistance, so to overcome that, you want to bring very high accuracy. So plus 50 accuracy for all dungeons, yeah, that's awesome. I think this is better than any of the other captain skills, in my opinion. So those are the reasons why I would also think of Thea. Especially if you already have Voresh and you have Zarloth as well, I think Thea would make a great combo, because you have 3 supporting characters that do a lot of attack, but they all also heal, right? So you don't even have to bring another healer anymore if you have all 3 of them. And they're all in the same 2 elements. They're all in the Necrosis and Frost Element. So the three of them go really well together. So I would urge you to think about her, especially if you already have Warish and Zarloth. I think she is a very good addition. Now I want to talk about at least one unit from every two elemental combos, because I think, if you're building a lightning light, I haven't really given you. Well, I have. I've talked about Garius, but I want to give another option as well. Um, Aside from Garius, there are two other units within the light and lightning that I think stand out to me. One of them is Catherine. She is a direct upgrade from Hexandra, because she does more healing. It's based off of also her enlightenment, and she also provides debuff immunity as well. Her and Thea are basically the easiest sources of debuff immunity in the game, and they are both epics. So now that you have a chance to choose an epic, she is one unit that's really good. And she also does provide healing on her battle skill as well, and also increases the defense up by 60% for a single target. So Catherine is an okay choice, especially if you're lacking a good healer and you find that Hexandra isn't doing it for you. The other unit that I would mention is Nathaniel, because the way I see these units is how often can I bring them? Like, how many dungeons can I bring them to? And Nathaniel fits in a lot of things, because he does attack, he does shielding, and it increases defense, 30% defense and shielding to all allies on the map. He is also able to debuff. He's able to dispel one debuff from allies as well, and grant them with recovery over time. So he does a little bit of healing with this skill, and he also does more healing with his passive as well. Whenever an ally's buff disappears, which he provides buffs to everybody, by the way, whenever that disappears, he is able to give them 5% of max HP healing. He also additionally has a captain skill as well. I mean, that's not a big deal here, but yeah, he does a lot of stuff. So you can bring him in a lot of places, and especially if you're going with a light and lightning team, I think he is a very, very, very good addition to go with. Lastly, I want to talk about a healing option for the fire and poison teams. I think she's also somebody that I don't really see talked about a lot. She's able to resurrect 2 units. Now that's not as useful as I initially thought, because usually when you resurrect them, they die fast soon anyway, unfortunately, because you're only resurrecting them with 30% of their max HP. If the boss happens to do a crit on you or something and you die and you resurrect them with this, okay, fine, maybe it has some application, but it's not too much application. But I still think she's very good, because she's able to grant everybody defense up to 60% defense to all allies. She is also able to grant a 20% max HP healing to everyone on the map. She does consume a little bit of her HP to use this skill, but I don't think that's. I mean, if you have another unit that you bring along that does like small healings, like for example Warish or something, then you can keep her topped up. Right? Her passive is not that important, but she is a solid character. She does 20% healing to everyone. She provides a 60% defense buff to everybody, and additionally, on the occasional chance that you need to resurrect somebody, she can do that as well. You can also bring her in arena as well, for example, because in arena people do die more often. You can stick her in one corner with nobody else around her, so even with AoEs, she's not targeted. All of your other allies die, and then suddenly all of them are raised back up because of her ultimate. So she is pretty good, and if you are building for fire poison teams, I think she is like I could see people going with her instead of somebody like Catherine, because that's kind of what you're going with. And a lot of people also have Sigrid. If you don't have Sigrid, by the way, you have other chances to get her without actually pulling on them, because every time this walker's traits keeps refreshing, on the 10th chest you are able to pick another rare. So I don't know where people are at. I mean, everyone has a different start date, everyone joined this different servers, but whenever your walker's trials expires and you're doing it a second time, you will get another chance to choose whichever hero you want. So if you didn't pick Sigrid the first time, I very strongly recommend that you pick Sigrid the second time, because she's just a very fantastic unit. So lastly, I'm going to talk about a single target attack unit, because in case that's what you're looking for, right? I've heard, I haven't personally used him very much, but I've heard that he is one of the best single target attacking units out there in the game. A lot of people talk about him, a lot of people have done videos about him, so if you want to know more about him in detail, you can, you can YouTube it. There are other creators that talk about him a lot, and they talk about his damage potential, but I've heard that he is one of the best single target damage units as an epic out there. But in my opinion, as I said earlier, there's very few places that you can bring just strict damage units to. You want to bring units that do other things as well. So for me personally, even if I'm looking for a damage character, I would just pick Orish because in on top of all the damage he does, maybe it doesn't do as much damage as the single target guy that spoke about. Maybe he does a little bit less, but he does so much more. And I talked about having access to a guy that attacks everybody on the map, how big of a deal that is, and especially because he attacks everybody 3 times on the map, right? So you have a very big chance to cast the things that I talked about. So that's why I think Warish. If I didn't have any money, if I didn't have any of the epics, Warish would 100% be the unit that I'm going for. But everyone is in a different circumstance, so I talked about a few units, but I hope that I've given you enough ideas that will help you to pick one of the epic heroes that I talked about. If there is a unit that I think that you think that I missed talking about that also deserves some consideration, please leave it in the comments so I can read about it as well. I haven't looked at every single unit in a lot of detail, so if there is somebody I missed, I would really like to know. Anyway, that's it for now, guys. I will talk to you guys later. See you.